welcome to my channel. I'm Martin from MJ Hobby Corner, and in this video I want to give a little update on a lot of the things that I'm doing for my Patreon, because that's going to be a very important part of 2025. I am working a lot closer with my Patreon this year, and some of the things that are going to trickle down to the channel as well. You know, these are things that are not going to be exclusively on Patreon, but if you want to see the more detailed results of some of these things, then yes, my Patreon would be a great way to support the channel that way. Okay, so let's start with Four Against Darkness. Now, this game, I've been waiting to play this game. This is a pen and paper RPG, and a solo RPG at that. You can't play it co-op. But this is by author Andrea Sfiloghi, which he is also author of games like Of Gods and Mortals and Rogue Stars, A Song of Blades and Heroes. You know, just a lot of games out there. Even Deep Wars, I think, is another one, the mechanics in Deep Wars. So I really do enjoy his work. This is if you're trying the game out for the first time, this is the core rules, and this basically has all you need. But one of the things that really attracted me to this system is the fact that you can start out with one book, and if that's where you want to stay, well, fine. That's it. You have the one book. But depending on what kind of gaming experience you're looking for, this system it has loads of expansions, right? There's a lot of books to this system. And in a way, that's really good because you can customize your gaming experience to whatever you want. So basically, after you've played the game, if you want to get out of the dungeon crawl for a little bit and explore cities, well, we have an expansion for that. Well, a couple of expansions actually that deal with cities and adventures in cities. We have, wayfarers and adventurers, which give more like nature classes, things like druids, right? Gnomes, new classes. So you can really customize your gaming experience whichever way you want. And this year, this is my little setup for Four Against Darkness, and that's because Julie has a lot of mobility problems. She suffers from a lot of pain, and as you guys here on the channel probably have noted, that Julie's just not around anymore, and part of that is because of all the health issues that she's been having. So she is getting better and she's moving around more. So this little table here is actually something that we've been using with the dice tower so that she can play from a comfortable position on a couch, in her bed, whatever it is, and we can play our RPGs using this. And I'm actually talking to my brother to see if we can come up with some kind of folding table like this, bigger, so that we can play like a miniature skirmish game, right? Maybe play in one of the smaller scales, like 15 millimeter, 172 scale. I know she prefers 28 millimeter, but if we can kind of condense that and then make a nice little folding table where her feet can be under here, it'll make a big difference for her to be able to join me in games. So I'm working on that. I'm looking at the budget. I'm seeing what kinds of things we'll need to make that and kind of customize it to Julie's needs. But for the time being, this is what we use for RPGs, and this is what I'm going to be using to play Four Against Darkness. Four Against Darkness, I'm really excited about playing this game. I've been wanting to play this game for quite some time, and Santa was really good this year and actually brought me quite a few little books for me to get started with this game. Now, all you really need is this. To get started, this is what you need. But of course, once you start playing a few games, you're going to want to expand. And so I have plenty of expansion here. I am going through all the books on my Patreon. There will be like little book reviews and stuff, and One of the things that I really love about this game is how you make your dungeon. And so you have these randomly generated dungeon rooms and corridors and entrances. And basically, you're just drawing your dungeon on, graph paper. And so the game recommends a certain size of graph paper. And that's another thing that I'm making available on my Patreon is graph paper. So patrons can print out whatever kind of graph paper they want, hex graph paper or whatever. And so basically I cut up my little graph paper sheet and I'm ready to go with the first dungeon. So here on the channel, I am going to have sort of this narrative update where we're going to find out what happens to this party that I just created. And Julie is going to be in the background, so she's going to be we're going to basically play it co-op. She's she's going to take over one or two of the characters and we're just going to see how this game plays. So it's going to be solo and co-op depending on how Julie is feeling. But I have quite a few of the books and I'm going to be going over these as I get more experience with the game, okay? Which expansions I think you could use first. There a lot of people based on their experience will recommend certain of the books in order. There is a certain order that you can get these books in order to get, a really good experience. Which are the books you may need first, that kind of thing. So I'll go over all that stuff as I get more experience with the game. But for now, I just want to play the game. All right. So one of the things this year that my patrons will note is that I'm getting a lot more into the creative aspect of my games, my solo RPGs, my solo war games. And one of the things that I will be doing is I will be making maps available, just random maps, generic maps that people can use whichever way they want, save people a little time. I'm also going to be doing tutorials on how I draw certain things. And I'm really not the greatest artist or anything, but you know, I can hold my own. And basically what for example, what I'm doing here, this is some rock texture. Well, I'm going to make an entire sheet of paper out of this stone that I'm drawing. So all I do is I draw this pattern. I take this into my computer, go on Microsoft Paint, fill up the page, right? Just copy and paste, and twist the image around different ways, have it fit in different ways. Then I take it to Canva, and in Canva I do any necessary layering or fixes, and I put a grid on it. And then by putting a grid on it, it's ready to print, and I can print out a grid paper with this kind of pattern on it. Now, it doesn't have to have a grid. It could just be regular stone paper, so I would have it in different ways so that people can kind of print out whatever they want, so I would provide different options. So map making and using maps in my war games, in my role-playing games, that's going to be a big thing this year, in 2025, especially when I want to add narrative to my miniature war games. Maps are just very handy tools. So here is the original image I started with, right? One little cluster of boulders. And then here is the cavern map. This is actually a battle board, and this is what I'm using in some of my solo RPGs. And I use tokens. I don't necessarily have to use miniatures. You don't have to use miniatures in solo RPG. I can use my tokens. But if I want to make this a battle map, say for a skirmish war game, I could print out another sheet, join them together, and play with 1/72 scale miniatures, and actually have a little pocket war game, right? Add some cardboard terrain, the way I make my cardboard terrain for caves, and I can set up a really cool looking little game. Of course, this is very subjective. I'm saying cool looking, but someone else could come along and say, I don't like that. And that's all right. I mean, it's all very subjective. But one thing that patrons will note this, and even the channel, I will have a lot of updates, is that I am really expanding my creative abilities this time around and sharing them as much as possible. All right. I'll have tutorials, how I draw my boulders. I'll have things in the magazine for other people that are not patrons that can have access to it. All these things. Canva is the most important tool right now for me, and I do have a subscription to Canva, and all of my patron funds, they take care of that subscription. It's not an expensive subscription, and it makes the magazine possible, and it makes all of these cool things possible. So, like I said, this is hand drawn, and all I did was manipulate it on first on Microsoft Paint, and then I took it over to Canva, and Canva does the rest for me. So it's a service that I'm really happy that I can provide for people. And patrons will probably see, depending on the tier, they're going to see their maps. That's going to be a digital sort of perk that I'm providing for people. So here's the map of a cavern system, and then here's the actual battle board for that, cavern system. So I'm going to provide different kinds of maps. I'm going to provide graph paper, just simple graph paper for people to use so they don't have to go searching online. All of these things are things that I'm planning. So one of the reasons why I don't print this stuff up in color, and I have two different sizes of little boards here. One of the reasons I don't print this out in color is that it saves more ink. All right. So I try as much as possible to do this kind of shading so that it's not digital. This way I'm not printing this shading because it does take a lot more ink, and so yeah, it looks a lot better in color, but you're also paying for it in ink. So since color ink is so expensive, I try to provide it more. I will try to provide like maps like this where you can just kind of fill out the locations yourself. And there will be a little document associated with these maps that talk about how, for example, I handle cavern systems. I have a whole different way of looking at cavern systems now. I do not lump them underneath. I do not make them synonymous with dungeon crawls. In my opinion, a cavern is way too different an environment to classify it as a simple dungeon crawl. So I actually have a video on my Patreon where I kind of rant a little bit about that. But these are little pits. These are areas. These squares here represent little pits where it could give access to other layers of the cave, other levels of the cave. But really what this sheet represents is a battle map. This is the battle map. So this is where I would fight a little cavern battle. I'm opening up my collection of maps to my patrons, and a lot of these will be, fixed up a little bit, and just they're going to be added as digital perks for patrons, and they can use these maps however they want. And basically what I'm going to be doing, see here, I really darkened that. That's going to take a lot of ink if we want to print that. So I do have a version that doesn't have this chasm darkened like that, okay? And some of these are just practice maps, and basically I show how I use them in my games, not just role-playing, but also war games. I use maps in war games. So, yeah, that's it. It's a very, I love making maps. I realize that I definitely love making maps, and I love using maps. So there we go. I needed to talk about this. I love my games, and I love playing war games and role-playing games. And I'm a miniature collector, but at heart, I'm a builder. I'm a creator as well. And so using my creations, whether they be cardboard or paper models, I don't care, whatever it is, using those things in my games is really the main idea of this channel. More than anything else, this is a crafting channel. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, for supporting the magazine on War Games Vault, on my Patreon shop. I know some people have purchased the magazine from my Patreon shop. I do make a little bit more revenue when you purchase it there, but regardless of which, it doesn't matter if you go to War Games Vault, Patreon shop, whatever it is. I appreciate that support and welcome new subscribers. If you want to hear more updates, stay here on the channel. I'll give more updates, and you're definitely going to see some of the games. My patrons are going to be busy voting on certain mini campaigns, and then we'll bring about some updates here to the channel as well. All right, so thank you very much, folks, and well, I'll see you in the next video, and talk very soon. Be safe out there. All right, so have a great one.